The rain fell softly on the metal roofs of the outer colony. Inside a small workshop on the edge of the settlement, a human engineer named Elias Ward worked late into the night. His table was full of glowing wires, broken chips, and half-finished machines. Most people in the colony repaired weapons or mining bots, but Elias built things no one asked for. He built things that gave him peace. That evening he was working on a strange object, a curved frame with small blue lights running across it. It looked like a pair of glasses, but heavier, smoother, more alive. He whispered to himself, "If I can just make this power cell stable, maybe it will work this time." He didn't know that his invention would soon change everything. Outside, the wind carried the sound of footsteps. Someone was knocking on the door, slow and weak. Elias frowned. No one ever came here after dark. He opened the door carefully, and the sight froze his breath. A small figure stood in the rain, trembling. Her skin had a soft violet glow, her hair silver like the edge of a blade. She wore a dirty cloth around her eyes. I can't see," she whispered, her voice shaking. Elias could tell immediately she wasn't human. She was Lemurian, one of the alien races that shared this sector of space. He had heard stories about them. Beautiful, graceful, and proud, but this girl looked fragile, broken, afraid. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then he stepped aside and said quietly, "Come in." The workshop was warm and filled with the hum of machines. The girl hesitated before stepping in, her bare feet leaving wet prints on the floor. Elias gave her a blanket and some warm broth. She held the bowl carefully, her fingers tracing its shape before drinking. After a while, she said softly, "My name is Lyra. I ran away." Her words trembled like a child trying to be brave. Elias asked, "Ran away from where?" "From the city," she replied. "The soldiers destroyed our village. My mother told me to hide. She said humans were dangerous." She turned her face toward his voice, even though her blind eyes could not see him. "But you don't sound dangerous," she added, almost smiling. Something inside Elias stirred, a memory of his own daughter lost long ago in the mining disaster. He pushed the thought away, but when he looked at Lyra, he saw the same innocence, the same quiet fear. He said gently, "You should rest. You're safe here." As she lay down on an old couch, he looked again at the visor on his table. An unfinished project from years ago, banned technology from the old human-Lemurian war. The Aurora Visor, a device that could replace damaged eyes with synthetic vision. It was outlawed because the energy source was unstable, but Elias knew how to fix it. He had sworn never to touch it again, but now he wasn't sure. That night he could not sleep. Lyra's quiet breathing filled the workshop, and outside the rain fell endlessly. He stared at the visor, its faint blue light glowing like hope itself. "She wants to see the stars again," he muttered to himself. He began to work, connecting wires, reprogramming chips, aligning lenses. Every spark of light felt like a heartbeat returning to life. Hours passed, and dawn painted the sky with soft gold. Lyra woke to the sound of tools clinking. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Trying to fix something that was broken a long time ago," he answered. He walked over to her, holding the visor carefully. "Do you trust me?" She nodded slowly. "Yes." Elias placed the device gently over her eyes. There was a low hum, then a pulse of blue light. Lyra gasped, her fingers clutching the edges of the couch. I can see light," she whispered, tears running down her violet cheeks. Elias smiled, his heart swelling with relief. "Then open your eyes, Lyra," he said. The visor shimmered, adjusting its energy pattern, and for the first time in years, she saw the world again. Her lips trembled. "The light. It's beautiful." For a brief moment, the world was silent. Then somewhere above the clouds, an unseen drone blinked to life. Its red lens zoomed in through the window, recording the forbidden signature of the Aurora Visor. The message it sent was short and cold. "Unauthorized human tech detected. Deploy retrieval unit." Far beyond the colony, deep in orbit, four armored soldiers received the signal. Their eyes glowed under heavy helmets. Their ship turned toward the surface, cutting through the clouds like a blade. And below, unaware of the storm about to fall, Elias smiled at the child who could finally see again. Morning came slowly to the outer colony. Thin sunlight filtered through the cracks of the old metal roof. Lyra sat near the window, her silver hair glowing in the light, her new visor reflecting soft waves of blue. She looked around the room, amazed at every little thing she could now see. Her fingers brushed the surface of a cup, the texture of a metal tool, the shimmer of dust in the air. For her, every detail was a miracle. And for Elias, her smile was worth more than all the credits in the galaxy. He poured her a cup of warm broth, smiling faintly. "You should rest your eyes. The visor still needs calibration," he said. Lyra laughed softly. "I don't want to rest. I want to see everything." Her laughter filled the quiet room like sunlight after rain. Outside, the horizon shimmered with mist. Beyond the hills, the air began to ripple with the low hum of engines. The sound was faint at first, then grew heavier, metallic, and sharp. Birds scattered from the forest edge, and the silence that followed felt wrong. Something unseen was coming closer. Elias looked up, his instincts twitching like a warning. He had been in too many wars to ignore that feeling. He walked to the door and scanned the distant hills. Nothing yet, just the fog. But the hum was still there, hidden inside the wind. Lyra turned to him. "Is something wrong?" He forced a smile. "Probably just a mining drone." But deep inside, he knew better. He walked to his bench and opened a hidden panel. Inside it was an old rifle, a relic from his soldier days. He hadn't used it in years, but he checked the chamber anyway. Then he placed it back quietly, hoping he'd never need it again. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "You're worried." Elias looked at her and sighed. "I've seen what happens when good things get noticed by the wrong people." She tilted her head, her new eyes bright and curious. "But you helped me. Doesn't that make it right?" He hesitated before answering. "Sometimes, doing the right thing paints a target on your back." Hours passed slowly. Lyra explored the room, touching, learning, laughing. Elias tried to act normal, but every sound outside made his heart beat faster. By afternoon, the mist thickened again, rolling in like waves from the valley. Through it came shadows, large, silent, deliberate. Then, without warning, the workshop lights flickered. A deep mechanical thud echoed across the plain. Elias ran to the window. Through the fog he saw shapes, four armored soldiers, tall and metallic, their armor marked with glowing sigils. The insignia of the Lemurian Imperial Guard. His blood ran cold. They were not here by accident. Lyra looked out too, her voice trembling. "Those symbols, that's my world's army." Her hands shook as memories flooded back. The fire, the screams, the smoke. "They found me," she whispered. Elias stepped between her and the door. "Then they'll have to go through me first." He began moving fast, grabbing his tool pack, sealing windows, activating the old security shutters. The soldiers outside spread into formation, scanning the building with scanners and drones. One of them spoke in a deep metallic voice. "Human engineer Elias Ward, you are in possession of forbidden technology belonging to the Lemurian Empire. Surrender immediately." Elias clenched his fists. "I didn't steal it," he muttered. "I built it for her." Lyra stood behind him, tears forming again. "I don't want them to take you," she said. He turned, kneeling down to meet her eyes. "They won't, not if I can help it." Outside, one of the soldiers raised a plasma cutter. A beam of orange light sliced through the workshop's steel door like paper. Sparks flew as the metal began to melt. Elias grabbed Lyra's hand. "Back door now." They ran through the workshop, past machines and scrap. The door burst open behind them with a deafening crack. Blue smoke filled the air, shadows stormed in, armored boots echoing like thunder. Elias pulled Lyra through a hidden hatch under the floor, into a maintenance tunnel that led toward the old forest. The heat of the plasma fire glowed above them. Lyra's heart pounded. "They're going to destroy your home," she said. He smiled grimly. "It's just metal, kid. I can build again, but I can't rebuild a life." As they disappeared into the darkness, the soldiers stormed the empty workshop, scanning for heat traces. One of them found the half-burned schematics of the Aurora Visor. He transmitted it to his command ship and spoke coldly. "The target has escaped with the subject. Authorization for pursuit granted." Outside, engines roared once more. The forest trembled as four armored soldiers took flight into the fog. And somewhere deep inside those woods, a human and an alien child ran side by side. One carrying the hope of sight, and the other carrying the weight of a war he never wanted to fight. The tunnel opened into the wild forest beyond the colony. Cold mist curled between the black trees, and the air shimmered with drifting spores. Elias held Lyra's hand tightly as they ran through the overgrowth, their boots sinking in wet soil. Behind them, faint metallic sounds echoed. The hunters were coming. Every few seconds the sky flashed with blue light as the soldiers scanned the ground from above. Lyra stumbled once, catching herself on a tree trunk. "I can't see far. The visor flickers," she whispered. Elias knelt beside her, checking the small device on her face. "It's overheating," he said softly, adjusting a panel with his thumb. "It wasn't made for running." She tried to smile despite her fear. "Neither was I." He laughed once, quietly. "You're tougher than you think." The forest around them glowed faintly from the strange bioluminescent plants. They passed fallen metal wrecks half buried in moss, old ships from forgotten wars. Elias paused beside one broken hull, pressing his hand to its cold surface. "This used to be a battlefield," he murmured. Lyra tilted her head. "You fought here?" He shook his head slowly. "I survived here." Above the canopy, a deep hum grew louder. The soldiers' dropship descended through the fog, its searchlights cutting through the trees like blades of light. Elias pulled Lyra down behind a fallen log, motioning for silence. The ground shook as the armored soldiers landed nearby. Their voices came through the static, sharp and cold. "Thermal trace located, move forward." Elias gritted his teeth, thinking fast. He took a small cylindrical device from his pack, a decoy emitter. He set it on the ground and whispered, "Run north when this goes off." Lyra grabbed his sleeve, eyes wide. "What about you?" He smiled faintly. "I'll catch up, promise." The emitter blinked once, then burst into a flare of blue light and static. Heat signatures exploded across the scanners, and the soldiers turned instantly toward it. Their plasma rifles fired, cutting through trees, setting the forest ablaze. Elias pulled Lyra away through the smoke, their silhouettes vanishing into the deeper woods. For a few moments they moved unseen, but one of the soldiers switched to infrared mode, tracking their real trail. He moved silently through the shadows, faster than any human. Elias felt it before he saw it. A shift in the air, a low hum from behind. He turned, shoving Lyra aside just as a plasma shot tore through the tree trunk beside him. The impact sent sparks flying across the dark forest. Lyra screamed his name. Elias rolled, grabbing his old rifle and firing back once. The shot hit the soldier's shoulder plate, barely scratching the armor. The alien raised his weapon again, his glowing eyes locked on Elias. But before he could shoot, Lyra raised her hands. The visor flared bright blue, sending a sudden pulse of light that blinded the sensors in the soldier's helmet. He stumbled back, cursing in his alien tongue. Elias stared in shock. "Lyra, what did you do?" "I don't know," she gasped. "The visor, it just reacted." The soldier roared, his armor sparking as systems rebooted. Elias grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her deeper into the trees. They ran until their lungs burned, until even the forest grew quiet again. When they finally stopped, the night had settled over the planet. Stars flickered through the mist, and the faint hum of the ship was now far away. Elias sat on a rock, breathing hard. Lyra looked at him, guilt heavy in her new eyes. "It's my fault they're here," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, Lyra. They're here because I built something they fear." She frowned. "But why would they fear something that gives light?" He smiled tiredly. "Because light shows what power tries to hide." They rested near an ancient tree, roots glowing faintly from alien fungus. Elias repaired the visor again, his hands steady but eyes full of worry. "The signal pulse from your visor reached orbit," he explained. "It's like a beacon now. So they'll keep chasing us." He nodded slowly. "Until we find somewhere they can't follow." Far above the clouds, the soldiers regrouped, their leader receiving orders from command. "Recover the girl, destroy the human," the voice said. The leader looked down at the forest, scanning the dark trail below. He clenched his metal fist and whispered, "No one hides forever." Back below, Lyra lay against the cold ground, staring at the stars through the trees. "Elias," she murmured, "do you think humans and Lemurians could ever be friends?" He looked at the broken sky, the fire still burning in the distance. "Maybe one day," he said softly. "But first, We have to survive tonight. The forest wind carried the echo of engines once again. The hunters were coming back, stronger, angrier, and closer than before. And in the shadows, Elias prepared for the next fight. Because sometimes, a single act of kindness can start a war worth fighting. The night grew colder as the twin moons drifted above the forest canopy. A soft mist rolled along the roots and rocks, glowing faintly under the alien starlight. Elias had built a small campfire deep inside an old cave, the orange light flickering over metal walls left behind from some ancient mining site. Lyra sat beside him, her visor dimmed to standby mode, faint blue lines running across her cheeks. She looked exhausted, but her mind would not rest. Elias tightened the last strap of his tool pack, his hands moving automatically. He was a builder, not a fighter, yet fate had turned his invention into a reason to run. Lyra finally spoke, her voice quiet. Elias, why are they chasing us so hard? It's just a visor. He looked up at her, shadows dancing across his tired face. It's not just a visor, he said slowly. It's a bridge between two species. She tilted her head, unsure what he meant. He sighed, poking the fire with a stick. During the war, both sides tried to create technology that could read neural signals directly. It failed every time. But your visor, our visor, did something no one else managed. Lyra frowned. What did it do? He hesitated. It linked to your brain patterns instantly, perfectly, and that means it could link minds, not just restore sight. She gasped softly, mind-to-mind connection. Elias nodded. If used right, it could allow humans and Lemurians to share memories, emotions, even thoughts. Lyra stared into the flames, realizing the truth. They don't fear you. They fear what you made, she whispered. Elias smiled faintly. Empathy can be more dangerous than any weapon. Outside, thunder cracked across the sky. Heavy clouds rolled in from the east, glowing faint blue from the energy of the soldiers' ships. The storm wasn't natural, it was generated to flush them out. Elias heard the deep pulse of engines again, the rhythmic vibration of machines searching. He stood quickly, packing his tools. We can't stay here. Lyra looked scared. Where can we go? He pulled a small holomap from his wristband, a grainy projection flickering in midair. There's an abandoned relay tower north of here, he said. Old communication hub from the war. If we can reach it, I can send a signal to the outer colonies. Maybe get help. Lyra nodded. Determination replacing fear. Then let's go. Rain began to pour as they stepped out of the cave. Lightning streaked across the alien sky, illuminating twisted trees and glistening stone. They climbed through the wet forest, moving quietly, avoiding open clearings. Each flash of light revealed something darker behind the storm clouds. The soldiers descending again. Their armor shimmered under the rain, glowing symbols burning like cold fire. Elias and Lyra ran until their lungs ached. The relay tower appeared ahead, tall, broken, and half buried in vines. It rose like a skeleton against the storm, its top still crackling faintly with old power. Elias forced open the control hatch and started rewiring circuits, sparks flying around him. Lyra stayed close, watching the tree lean nervously. They're near, she whispered, her visor scanning faint heat traces. Elias didn't look up, just a few more seconds. The ancient system flickered alive, glowing faint green. He connected his wristband to the terminal, sending encrypted coordinates to an unknown network. Message sent, he said, exhaling in relief. But before he could smile, the ground exploded beside them. The blast threw both of them to the floor, metal shards slicing through the rain. The soldiers had arrived, moving like shadows in the lightning. Elias pushed Lyra behind a broken console, drawing his old rifle. The leader stepped forward, his voice echoing through the storm. Human, surrender the girl and the device. Your life will be spared. Elias spat rainwater. You already took enough lives. The alien tilted his head. Then you choose death. Plasma fire lit up the night. Bolts of blue energy tore through the tower, burning holes in the walls. Elias fired back, missing most shots, just buying time. Lyra held the visor, her hands shaking. Elias, if it connects minds, maybe I can. Don't, he shouted. It's unstable. But she ignored him, pressing her hands against her temples, the visor glowing white-blue. The soldiers froze mid-attack, their helmets flickering with static. For one terrifying moment, their minds touched hers. Lyra gasped as alien images flooded her thoughts. Their orders, their fear, their pain. She saw memories of burned cities, dying children, soldiers told that humans were monsters. Tears streamed down her face. "They're afraid," she whispered. Elias grabbed her shoulders, pulling her back. "Lyra, stop." The visor cracked, releasing a surge of energy that threw them both backward. When the light faded, the storm went silent. Two soldiers lay unconscious, the others retreating into the fog. Elias crawled toward Lyra, her visor smoking faintly. "Lyra, are you okay?" She nodded weakly. "I saw everything. Elias, I saw why they fight." He looked toward the sky, rain washing the blood from his hands. "Then maybe we just gave them something they can't control," he said softly. Far above, the command ship hovered, silent. The soldiers reported failure, and a new order came down from the admiral himself. "Bring them alive. The girl may be the key." Lightning flashed again, and the chase was far from over. The morning after the storm was heavy with silence. Smoke still rose from the broken relay tower, twisting into the gray sky like ghosts of light. Elias and Lyra sat beneath the collapsed framework, their clothes soaked, their bodies bruised, but alive. The visor rested in Lyra's lap, its lens cracked, faintly glowing with pale blue veins. Elias stared at it, his mind torn between pride and fear. He whispered, "You shouldn't have used it, Lyra." She looked down, her voice soft. "It showed me their hearts. They're not evil, they're lost." Elias sighed, rubbing his temples. "Maybe, but now they'll come harder than before." He knew the soldiers would regroup, this time with heavier support, maybe even orbital drones. They wouldn't risk losing what they called the prototype. From far above the forest, the Lemurian command ship hovered quietly. Admiral Kale watched the broken landscape through his visor, his expression unreadable. Beside him stood one of the surviving soldiers, his armor scorched from the blast. The human defied direct orders. The soldier said, "He's dangerous." Kale shook his head slowly. "No, he's something worse. He's unpredictable." He turned toward the map, a red signal blinking faintly in the valley. "Find them, and bring me the visor intact." Down below, Elias guided Lyra through the forest again. Each step felt heavier, every breath reminding them how close death still lingered. Lyra's eyes glowed softly, the broken visor still partially working. "I can see heat trails," she whispered. "They're searching the southern ridge." Elias nodded. "Then we go west, into the ravine." The path led them through sharp rocks and glowing moss. The air grew colder, and distant metallic echoes followed them. As they moved deeper, Elias noticed something strange. The old Lemurian ruins were buried here, arches carved from crystal, half sunken in the mud. Symbols glowed faintly along the walls, written in a language long forgotten. Lyra touched one of the marks and gasped. "These are from the First Empire. This place is sacred." Elias frowned. "Sacred or not, it might be our only shelter." He guided her inside, the tunnel opening into a massive underground hall. Light shimmered across the ceiling where crystals refracted the dim glow of their lamps. It felt ancient, peaceful, untouched by war. They rested there for a while. Elias repaired his rifle, his movements automatic. Lyra watched him. "You've been a soldier before." He nodded slowly. "A long time ago, when I still believed in sides." She smiled faintly. "Now you believe in people." He chuckled softly, something like that. But peace never lasted long. A faint rumble vibrated through the floor, growing stronger every second. Elias stood instantly, scanning the ceiling. "They found us." From the tunnel entrance, beams of blue light cut through the darkness. Four soldiers marched inside, their weapons humming with energy. Elias pushed Lyra behind a crystal pillar. "Stay down." The air filled with plasma bolts, the explosions echoing through the ruins. Elias fired back, shards of light scattering across the ancient walls. The sound of the fight mixed with the hum of something older. The crystals themselves began to resonate. Lyra covered her ears. They're reacting to the energy. Elias realized too late what was happening. Each shot powered the ruins like a giant battery, the floor glowing brighter, symbols pulsing with ancient power. A burst of light erupted from the ground, throwing everyone off their feet. Elias slammed into a wall, his weapon flying from his hands. One soldier tried to rise, but was caught in the beam, frozen mid-air as energy wrapped around him. The ancient system had awakened. Lyra crawled toward Elias. "We have to leave." He looked at the glowing chamber. "No. Wait. Maybe we can use it." He crawled toward the central crystal, pulling out a damaged circuit from his pack. "If I link this to the energy flow, it might mask our signal." Lyra hesitated. "Or blow up the whole place." He grinned weakly. "Let's hope for the first one." He connected the wire and twisted the node. A wave of light rushed outward, and for a moment, everything turned silent. The scanners aboard the Lemurian ship flickered, their signals vanished. Kale frowned. "They're gone, impossible." But deep inside the ruins, Elias exhaled in relief. "It worked. We're invisible." Lyra looked around the glowing hall, her voice soft. "Elias, what is this place?" He studied the symbols. "It's older than both our species. Maybe it's what the visor was meant to connect to." Her eyes widened. "A source of shared memory." He nodded slowly. "If this power could connect minds across time, maybe that's why they fear it." Outside, lightning cracked across the distant sky again. The soldiers regrouped near the surface, confused, their scanners blind. Admiral Kale watched from orbit, his hand tightening into a fist. "Send ground reinforcements," he said coldly. "If they hide in the dark, then we'll burn the forest itself." Far below, Elias looked up at the flickering light of the ancient crystal. He whispered, "Looks like they'll never stop." Lyra placed her hand on his, her voice trembling but firm. "Then neither will we." The ruins hummed around them, awakening slowly. And deep beneath the world's surface, something older than empires began to stir. The ruins trembled as energy pulsed through the crystal veins. A deep hum filled the air, rising and falling like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Elias and Lyra stood in the center of the glowing hall, light washing over their faces. The walls shimmered with holographic symbols, forming shapes neither of them could fully understand. Lyra reached out, her hand hovering above a glowing sigil. "It feels alive," she whispered. Elias nodded slowly. "It's reacting to us, or maybe to the visor." The visor on Lyra's face flickered, then brightened, connecting with the resonance of the ruins. Streams of blue light flowed from the crystal pillars into the device. For a moment, Lyra froze, her eyes widening, her breath catching as visions flooded her mind. She saw stars, planets, countless lives rising and falling through time. She saw the first Lemurians walking beside humans, not as enemies, but as allies. Elias shouted her name. "Lyra, let go." But she couldn't move, her voice trembling as she spoke. "They were together once, Elias. Our species, they built this place." Elias stepped forward, grabbing the visor. Static electricity burned his skin, but he held on. The connection broke with a sharp crack of energy. Lyra collapsed into his arms, gasping for air. Elias looked around, his heart racing. "What did you see?" She opened her eyes slowly. "The truth, we were one people, long ago, before the wars." He stared at her, disbelief mixing with awe. "If that's true, then the visor isn't just technology, it's history." Lyra nodded weakly. "And the Empire destroyed that history. They erased it. They didn't want anyone to remember." Elias clenched his fists. "Then we'll remind them." Outside the ruins, the Lemurian army advanced through the forest. Flames tore through the trees, smoke rising toward the gray sky. Admiral Kale watched from his ship, his eyes cold. "The human is meddling with forces he doesn't understand," he said. But a small doubt flickered in his mind. If the girl truly held the memories of the first people, then maybe the Empire had been wrong all along. Inside the chamber, the air grew heavier. The floor opened beneath them, revealing a staircase spiraling deep underground. Lyra looked down into the glowing abyss. "It's calling us." Elias hesitated. "It could be dangerous." She smiled faintly. "Everything worth finding is." He sighed. "You sound like me now." Together they descended, step by step, as the hum of the ruins grew louder. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became. At the bottom of the staircase lay a massive chamber. In its center floated a sphere of pure light, surrounded by ancient machines and runes that shimmered like water. Lyra took a step forward, her voice barely a whisper. This is the core of the memory nexus. Elias frowned. Memory nexus. She nodded. The place where both species stored their shared knowledge, before the wars, before they forgot. As she spoke, the sphere pulsed and expanded, sending ripples of light across the chamber. The visor responded again, glowing white. Elias could feel energy coursing through the floor, through his hands, through his heart. Lyra, stop, it's too much, he said. But she reached out anyway, her hand brushing the light. Suddenly, the room exploded with visions. Thousands of images flashed through their minds. Children laughing under alien suns, scientists working side by side, soldiers shaking hands instead of drawing blades. Then came the fall, fire raining from the skies, betrayal, fear, propaganda, and war. Elias dropped to his knees, clutching his head. Lyra screamed, her voice echoing with both human and alien tones. And then, silence. When the light faded, the sphere dimmed to a soft glow. Elias opened his eyes, finding Lyra lying beside him, her skin faintly illuminated. He touched her shoulder gently. Lyra, are you okay? She looked up, tears in her eyes. I remember everything, Elias, every lie they told, every truth they buried. He helped her sit up. Then maybe we can show the galaxy. She shook her head. They won't let us. Not while the Empire stands. Above the ground, explosions echoed again, the soldiers closing in. Kale's ship hovered directly over the ruins, scanners finally piercing through the interference. Found them, one of his officers said. Kale stared at the readings, frowning. That energy signature, it matches the old Nexus records. He turned to his crew. Prepare for descent. I want to see this with my own eyes. Down below, Elias and Lyra could already hear the roar of engines. Elias stood, picking up his pack and rifle. They're coming again. Lyra looked at the glowing sphere. Then maybe it's time they see what they tried to destroy. Elias nodded, determination hardening in his voice. Let's give them the truth. The chamber lights pulsed brighter. The ancient machines stirred once more, as if awakening for the final time. And somewhere in that glowing heart of history, the voices of the first people whispered, "Remember who you are." The sound of the dropship engines echoed through the forest above. Elias and Lyra stood in the glowing chamber, the ancient sphere pulsating softly at their backs. The visor on Lyra's face hummed with renewed energy, bridging the past and present. She took a deep breath. They'll come for us, Elias. The Empire won't stop. He nodded, adjusting his pack and checking his rifle. Then we show them the truth, no matter the cost. Above, the Lemurian soldiers descended, their armored boots crushing fallen leaves. Plasma rifles glinted in the dim moonlight, scanning for heat. Admiral Kale stepped forward from the command ship, his eyes fixed on the energy signature below. This is the human they warned us about, he said, voice low and cold. Send in the retrieval team, one officer replied. Kale shook his head. No, let them see first. Let them see what we destroyed and why it should never be forgotten. Down below, the chamber shook as the first wave of soldiers reached the entrance. Elias held Lyra close, whispering, "Stay calm, follow my lead." Lyra nodded, her fingers trembling as she touched the sphere. The visor's light spread across her hands, then across the chamber floor, illuminating the carved runes. Symbols glowed brighter, lifting into the air like holograms. Visions began to flow. The history of humans and Lemurians working together, peaceful colonies, shared discoveries, laughter, and light. The soldiers froze as the images reached them, plasma rifles lowering slowly. Even Kale leaned forward, eyes widening as the truth unfolded before him. Lyra's voice rose, soft but clear. This is who we were, who we could be again, not enemies, but friends, not destroyers, but creators. Her words resonated through the chamber, amplified by the ancient machines. The soldiers took a cautious step closer, then another, unable to look away. Elias felt a strange warmth as he watched them, enemies made silent by truth. He whispered to Lyra, "It's working, they're listening." Outside, lightning illuminated the forest, casting long shadows. The dropship hovered, but Kale did not fire, his hand gripping the console tightly. He had seen what centuries of fear had hidden. And for the first time in decades, doubt touched his mind. Could the humans and Lemurians really be more than enemies? Could this child and this human really show them a better way? Lyra turned toward Elias. They understand, she whispered. He smiled faintly, relief washing over him. Maybe they do. The visor glowed brighter, linking her mind with the chamber's energy. Images flowed like rivers of light, showing cooperation, shared victories, and the cost of hate. The soldiers began lowering their weapons, one by one. Their voices trembled as they spoke to each other in quiet tones, debating what they had seen. Kale finally stepped forward into the chamber, his armor reflecting the radiant light. He looked at Elias and Lyra, then at the sphere, and finally spoke, voice heavy. Perhaps we were wrong. Elias straightened, cautious but hopeful. It's never too late to remember. Lyra stepped forward, visor glowing softly. We can rebuild, if we choose to. A silence filled the ruins, broken only by the hum of the ancient machines. The soldiers knelt, not in submission, but in reverence for the knowledge they had lost. Outside, the storm passed, leaving the forest wet but calm. Stars sparkled above, clear and infinite. Elias looked up. The sky. It feels different now. Lyra smiled. Because we can see it together, not as enemies, but as friends. The sphere pulsed one final time, sending a ripple of light through the chamber and into the night sky. It was a signal, a promise, a beginning. The Empire would not forget what it had tried to bury. But now, humanity and Lemurians shared a secret, a vision of what they could be. And in that moment, Elias understood why he had risked everything for a single blind girl. For in helping her see, he had helped the galaxy open its eyes too. Lyra reached for his hand. We did it. Elias nodded, watching the stars reflect in her glowing eyes. Above, distant ships hovered silently, but the soldiers no longer sought blood. They sought understanding. And somewhere far away, the first whispers of peace began to echo. In the ruins, beneath the stars, a human and a child stood side by side. The prototype visor had done more than restore sight. It had restored hope.